Welcome to City Life, Monday the 28th of December. We're almost through 2020. Almost. So hang in there. We've got, today we've got George Zaroulis, who was the first one to sign in. Hi, George. How are you?
Good.
We have, in the studio, we have Dominic Lay. And hello, Dominic.
Hello, Cliff. Hello, everybody.
And George Procope.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, George. Jim Peters has joined us. The only one missing is Prue.
Prue's already in touch with me. He said he didn't get the invite. I just sent it to both of his email addresses, so he'll be here shortly.
The reason we want Prue is because he's bringing a guest, the professor at UMass Dartmouth, who's currently in Morocco. So that will be interesting. Prue.
Good morning, everyone. It was a very quiet, peaceful Christmas. The bright spot was when I got out in the morning. I got out, all the snow in my yard was gone. So I was very happy. The rain had washed everything.
Well, that's the truth, isn't it? Yeah.
With the family, my daughter in Minnesota and my son in Atlanta, I asked them not to take the risk to fly in. So, but at home, me and my two sons and my niece and my wife, we had a very peaceful Christmas and delicious meal. So we spent the whole day. It was quiet.
So wait, your son's in Atlanta. Is he going to law school down there?
No. He's working with General Technologies. The one who's in law school is here with me.
Oh, okay.
He'll be going to Suffolk.
You got too many kids for me to keep track of.
Well, that's God's gift.
Yes. Jim, what did you get for Christmas?
I don't remember. It wasn't anything, but some darkroom chemicals, I think.
Okay. Didn't get any books?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yes. By one person. You.
Professor
You know how
John
we normally emails out an
Fobanjon,
agenda? Did he send one?
and he's Professor is here to talk to us about Ambazonia.
Yeah, now you're good, John. You're good now. Say hello.
You're good.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Good.
I wanted to introduce the larger topic because I've been reading about Boko Haram operating in the north of Cameroon and how they've apparently infiltrated into government agencies and levels, and that's its whole own fight. And still, there is the fight in southern Cameroon and what we're now calling Ambazonia to provide freedom for the people down there who are being culturally and physically oppressed by the government of Cameroon that's been in office, what, decades?
Almost 38 years.
Oh, more than that, I would say 6 decades, 60 years.
It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, good morning, everyone, and happy holidays to all of you from North Africa, from the African continent. The struggle in southern Cameroon is a struggle that has to do with the quest for freedom. Freedom is basically a Western principle. The concept of self-determination, is Western. Before we came into contact with the West, Africa was ruled by kings and queens, and the rule there was decentralized. So there was no centralized supranational system superimposed on the people. Now the West came in, introduced this idea of democracy, self-determination. The speeches of Roosevelt between World War I and II. Roosevelt, at a conference that was called the Atlantic Charter, made a declaration calling on European countries to allow African states, African peoples, to exercise self-determination. So what we are doing in Southern Cameroon today, we are fighting for Western principles. We are fighting for the Western concept of self-determination, freedom, and democracy. We expect the West to stand with us. We expect the West to stand with the people of Southern Cameroons. But so far, the West has been able to give us lip service. They've not stood up to call on Biya, this dictator who's controlled and denied us our human rights for close to 60 years. The West has not given him an ultimatum. There's one language, and only one language that dictators listen to, and that language is an ultimatum. We gave it to Gaddafi, we gave it to Mobutu. The West, until the West gives an ultimatum to Paul Biya, Biya will continue to work with understanding that the West has its backing. And that's exactly what's happening. Biya, the war that's going on in Cameroon today, in Southern Cameroon today, is a war that is traded. Biya has chosen to trade the country's natural resources for his right to stay in power. It is a war that comes out of a transactional relationship with the West. The country is...
John McDonough.
Southern Cameroon is super rich. It has a variety of natural resources, agriculture in particular, that if it invested just in agriculture, Southern Cameroon could feed all of West.
It's very restless on your side.
Can you hear me?
Okay,
Yeah, keep going.
bring out.
Okay. So a transactional relationship in which Biya...
I didn't mean to.
Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we're hearing you. Jim, you
Okay.
have to hang up there. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I'm saying that Biya has a transactional relationship with Western neo-colonialist powers. He's mortgaged the country's natural resources to Western neo-colonialist powers in return for the West to support his stay in power. And that's what's happening. This is the man who's clueless, he's inept, he's transformed this oasis of wealth into a total disaster. Demographically, the population of Cameroon, 80% of the people in Cameroon are less than 30 years old. They are ruled by a man who is over 87 years old. He has nothing in common with the population that is in Cameroon today. The 80% of the youth have aspirations that are different from the aspirations of Paul Biya, this 87-year-old man. He doesn't have the vision that will create conditions that will allow for this youthful nation to maximize its potential. So most young people in Cameroon, growing up, their dream, their aspiration is to leave and go somewhere else. Some live into ships, Some travel across the Sahara. I actually met some here in Northern Africa. They are waiting by the coast here to take ships across over to Italy and Greece. So children have no aspiration, no hope in their country of birth. Some die crossing the Atlantic, some die crossing the Mediterranean, running away from a continent that supposedly is the richest continent in the world. Now, Paul Biya, along with other African rulers, do not see their youth as assets, do not see labor, the potential of these youth, young people as an asset. You cannot develop a nation without human resources. Have a population, a demography in a country that is youthful, that is an asset that you've got, you need to invest in. Not only do youth represent a workforce that can help transform a nation, they are also a potential market, consumer market. We produce, we market to them, they buy, and it grows the economy. But when you have a country that is ruled by a leader that has no vision, you cannot invest in this, you cannot make these young people maximize their potential. So that's a challenge, that's our problem. Otherwise, Africa should be attracting labor, not exporting labor. Young people in Europe, Asia, and North America should be flying to Africa to look for work, and not the other way around. So the crisis in Cameroon today have to do with mismanagement, lack of vision, the government that is clueless and inept. The West ought to intervene, should intervene, but for some reason, of course, reasons that we know, they've refused to intervene. When Paul Biya first came to power, the president of France today, Macron, he's about, Paul Biya is old enough to be Macron's grandfather. When Paul Biya first came to power, Macron, president of France, was not born. But today, Macron gives orders to Paul Biya. That's how odd the relationship is with this Western new colonialist powers.
So in your position back here in Massachusetts, have you been able to make any contact with any of our congressional delegation to talk to anyone? We have repeatedly, yes. We've met with all of our Massachusetts congressional delegation, individually, of course. And as you know, foreign policy is this exclusive reserve of the president. Congress, the most Congress can do is ratify agreements that the president negotiates with other countries. Congress doesn't make foreign policy. Congress has oversight duty to monitor and give advice, but it does not take the lead, cannot take the lead in making foreign policy. All of the congressional members that we've met so far, they've written to the State Department, they've written to the U.S. ambassador to the UN, but that's what they can do. A few have actually traveled to Cameroon and have seen firsthand deplorable conditions, but then they do not have the constitutional right to take the lead in conducting American foreign policy. Producer had a question, John.
Yeah.
You're on mute,
Professor,
John.
thanks. I'm muted here.
He's here.
Okay, anyway, what I'm asking you to do is to, John, have you engaged with the BBC? Because countries have so much information to process on their own, until you embarrass them amongst their colleagues. So if you're in touch with Sky News, the BBC, Fox News in the United States, CNN News in the United States, ABC, CBS, all these news agencies in the United States, if you give them video of what's going on in Cameroon, you'll see better movement than trying to communicate with these bureaucrats who have better things to do than talk to you. Back to you, John. What are your thoughts on that, Professor?
Yeah, the BBC is aware. BBC has journalists on the ground that report on a daily basis. The BBC is actually more knowledgeable than even online leaders in this struggle, because they have resources. They have the British High Commissioner, which is British appellation for an ambassador, who's there on the ground in Cameroon with intelligence officers that are monitoring everything. We have a large Cameroonian population in Britain that has repeatedly lobbied the UN Parliament.
Well, John, how often do you see it on, never mind the Parliament, how often is it on news, on the TV news? If you get it on the TV news, get out there for the people to see. Politicians don't like it when the people who vote for them see bad things that they could take care of. They just don't like it. And I've never seen this issue on NBC, CBS, or any of the local news organizations that come out of Boston. Never seen this. It took Frew to bring these atrocities up front here in lovely Lowell, Massachusetts. And to my view, at least they've stopped murdering people in cold blood. So that put a stop to that. So I think the success story here is going to be, you got to use your influence with the international media and get on Japanese TV, get on Chinese TV, try to get on TV about the atrocities that continue to happen, whether they're starving you to death or burning your village down. You need to put these things out there every single week, because right now in the United States, all it is boring. Let's talk more about COVID. Let's talk about how many people died today. Let's talk about how many people are sick today. All they talk about is COVID. The American news media is dying for something else to talk about. And if you give them some atrocities that are coming out of Cameroon, I think they'd put it out there. I'm done. Thanks.
I'm really glad that you brought up this point, because this gives me an opportunity to thank your station, your medium. You have done more to bring this crisis to the world stage and in the Cameroonian National Assembly. Since the outbreak of this conflict in 2016, the Cameroonian Parliament has never once sat down to look at what are the causes of the conflict, how they can resolve the conflict, how they can get the executive branch to sit down and report and give a reason why the government is killing its own citizens. Not once. Efforts have been made by English-speaking parliamentarians. They've tried to bring it up in Parliament, but at each attempt, the President of the National Assembly pushed it aside. But your medium, regional albeit, has done more. I've personally talked with people who live in Asia who have watched your show. People in South Africa, in Latin America, who've watched your program, who've learned about this crisis from watching you. Mainstream media, for some reason, are in cahoots with the neo-colonialist institutions that have created this relationship with Paul Biya. As I said earlier, Biya has put together this relationship where it has mortgaged the country's wealth to foreign multinationals, and that has silenced them. The BBC that I just talked about, a company in Britain 2 years ago signed a contract with Cameroon, $1.5 billion.
No.
You have exclusive rights in exploiting and extracting gas resources in Cameroon, $1.5 billion. And that alone would silence British media from bringing and criticizing its government inaction. So,
Professor, talking about it from an American perspective, a U.S. perspective, we've just gone through 4 years with the president trying to extract us from foreign entanglements, let's say, foreign wars, like Afghanistan and Iraq, Syria. I don't know what the new president will want, but isn't there a chance that he may not be interested in any foreign involvements? How do you see that?
that's again another good question. My heart goes out for the incoming president. His hands are full. There's so much he has to deal with domestically that I don't think he would have much time to pay attention to what's happening in distant places like southern Cameroon. But the current U.S. Undersecretary of State for African Affairs, Thibault Nagy, traveled to Cameroon about 2 years ago and tried to make the Cameroonian president understand that in a war like this, in a civil war, and a war that's basically driven by insurgency, it will be difficult, it's impossible to win on a civil war. Here's one fact, one universal fact, and the fact is that freedom is a machine that has no reverse gear. Freedom is a machine that was conceived without a reverse gear. Once people have woken up and decide to fight for their freedom, there's no turning back. If you look across history, every country that stood up and fought for its freedom never put down its weapon unless it won that war. Go back to the American War for Independence. Look at the recent war in Iraq, in Afghanistan. The reason why the current president is bringing back troops home is because it is done on our policymakers that the war in Afghanistan is unwinnable. So too is the war in southern Cameroon. The regime in Cameroon thinks that it's going to win the war by military means, but Thibault Nagy has reminded them that you will not be able to win this war. But we, as powerful as America is, America did not win the war in Vietnam. We were forced to negotiate a peaceful end to the war. Repeated calls have come in from the EU, from the US, that Mr. Biya should sit down and negotiate an agreement that will bring this war to an end. But for some reason, the regime, out of ineptitude and inability to understand history, believing that it is going to win by use of weapons.
Hey, John, before you go, I got a question for you before you go. It looks like you're having a mighty fine day there in Morocco. Can you give me any Moroccan politics? How are things in Morocco?
I didn't quite hear you. Could you say it again, please?
How are things in Morocco?
Morocco is one of the most stable countries in North Africa. Stable, progressive, even though it's ruled by a monarch. Of course, pro-West. 2 weeks ago, I'm sure you're aware of the policy that the outgoing president recognized U.S. Morocco's sovereignty over the Western Sahara. It's a country that is governed by a benevolent ruler. you don't see as many Moroccans running or crossing Atlantic to go to Europe because the economy is well managed. Young people are able to find work here, and sub-Saharan Africans are even migrating to Morocco in search of economic opportunities. It's a beautiful country.
It is a beautiful. I was there 4 years ago. Had a lovely time. Food's great. People were very friendly, and I did not know it was a monarch. But well-run country. It was a good place. Weather's perfect.
You will not believe this. Morocco has its public infrastructures are actually better developed than ours there in the U.S. Highways that you think you're driving on maybe the Santa Monica Highway, California or whatever. Beautiful. Its per capita income is just $3,000. But the quality of life much, much better than anywhere else on the African continent. And by the way, for Americans who are interested in history, Morocco actually was the first country that recognized America's independence in 1776. The first history in the world that stood up and said, we recognize America's fight for independence. Long before other European countries recognized America's independence. And that's why Morocco has a privileged relationship with the U.S.
Well, that's good. Have you been able to reach out to any organizations down in Washington, any of these think tanks like the Foundation for Defense of Democracies? Is anybody paying you any attention?
Yeah, we have been working and continue to work with the U.S. Institute of Peace. It's a congressional, funded by the Congress, of course, an NGO funded by the U.S. Congress that works to support, promote peace around the world. They're working with us, and we had a conference about 2 months ago, and they were party to the conference. We've had several meetings. Year before last. I helped organize a conference at UMass Boston, and the U.S. Institute of Peace was invited to that conference. And so they're working closely with us, and as I said, it's a U.S. funded. It's a funded by Congress, and every activity that they co-conduct with us, they report back to Congress. So Congress is fully aware.
We've got Fru has a question, and then George in Florida. Fru.
Thank you, Cliff. Prof, I'm glad John brought out a very good point that what are Cameroonians doing to reach out to the international community and the average people on the streets where in the various countries that they are living in, to be able to educate them about the plight and the genocide going on in southern Cameroon. What would be your message to southern Cameroonians in the diaspora? To how can individually we can do work to be able to mobilize the average the citizenry in these countries around the world, so that they know, because I believe, as John was saying, if the information is out there, people don't know, there would not be that uprising. What would be your message to southern Cameroonians all over the world?
A good question, very good question. The one egregious error the BDR regime made was that in declaring this war, it did not take into account the force of the diaspora, the force of the diaspora. It estimated the power of the southern Cameroon diaspora. For the first time in history, we see here a dynamic diaspora, what you could refer to as the fifth column. that has kept this struggle alive. Without this force of the diaspora, this war would have ended maybe in a week or 2 weeks. Because when we had declared the war, the unemployment rate in southern Cameroon was close to 80%. Most of the young people there were unemployed, had no income, had no means, could not even afford to buy a machete. But with the force of the diaspora, we were able to mobilize on all fronts, on all continents, particularly in North America, and generate the resources that allowed this young unemployed youth on the ground in southern Cameroon to stand up and defend themselves against a regime that was heavily armed. Biya first came to power in the mid-70s as a prime minister, and to become president. And the only investment that he's made in Cameroon is he's invested heavily in the military. The military is well armed, trained by the French, the Israelis, and even by the U.S. Marines.
Hey, John, we're running a short on time. If you conclude with that question, then I think George Zaharoulis has a question, and then we're going to say goodbye.
Good.
John, I think you're looking at the wrong direction. You said many times to the west, to the west. Maybe you should be looking to the north, and it's got to be England and France, and that's where your talk should be. As far as the United States, all you're looking for is money, and I didn't like the idea of you bringing up any civil war or anything in Vietnam.
Good. The U.S. is a global hegemony. For peace to reign in any country on any continent, the U.S. has to play a lead role. The West, when we talk about the West, that includes the North, of course, France and Britain and
That's the wrong direction.
So the West here, globally defined, is the West. It's North America and Europe. The U.S. played a decisive role in bringing peace in Eritrea, in the Sudans, and today it's playing a decisive role in bringing peace in Ethiopia. We expect the West to play a similar role in southern Cameroon. Now, going back to the 60s, there was a civil war in Nigeria, called the Biafran War.
Hey, John, respectfully, John, you got 60 seconds left, my friend. 60 seconds, then we're going to go to break.
Good.
So 1960, that's in the last century, so you need to wrap it up.
You have to use history as evidence for what we are asking for today.
Okay, then we'll bring it up next time. We'll bring it up next. Sorry, we got 45. You got 45 seconds, Professor. All yours. Then we're going to go to break.
Good. So to conclude, therefore, I'm saying here that we Southern Cameroonians are fighting in defense of the Western principle of self-determination, and we want the West to stand with us in fighting to promote democracy, self-determination, a nation that is built from the bottom up, not from the top down. So far, most African countries were built from the top down. When you build a house from the top down, that house cannot stay stable. When you build it from the bottom up, that house will be stable. So we want the world to join us and help us build a nation that goes from the foundation up, not from the top down.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much. And as the producer suggested, we'd like to have you back on again. But,
thank you all so much. Continue to do what you've been doing. People are watching you in Asia, in Africa, Latin America. What the mainstream media has been able to do, you've been doing it for us. And keep up with good work. You're making a difference in the world, and that's what life should we need to make the world a better place than the world we met, than the world we're born into. And I laud you to continue to do this.
Okay, thank you.
What do you think about the George Prokop? Did you have an announcement this morning that you wanted us to hear about?
I'm running away from home.
You're running away from home.
You know, for the years I've been coming on this show, John's always asked me one question: when am I running? And I just want to make it clear that I am not running for anything that's from a political aspect. I am not running for city council. What I did tell John is, because people think that you should run for something doesn't mean that you should run for something. In my heart, I feel that I am an activist in nature, and I like to have my boots on the ground. So I would help anyone in the city council, whether they're in my district or not, as long as it helps the city of Lowell.
George.
Yes, Ro.
No leader makes himself leader. If the people are asking you that question, it's because they see leadership qualities in you that you could join, be the part of the discussion, and bring more changes. I think your leadership is what the people are counting on you, that you can bring a lot of changes. If that was not the case, people would not really be asking, when is George running? Because they know that you can.
Well, you know, thank you, Fru, but for me, I feel that I am a neighborhood leader, and I feel that it's important to work with my neighborhood in order to affect change. If there is someone that I can work with who feel that they would want to, run for city council, I would work in supporting them. But for me, people might see me as a leader, but that does not mean that a leader makes a good politician.
Well, let's go around the room a little bit here. Dominic, are you going to run for anything?
I am going to run. I just feel that it is a little bit early because everybody expects me to run for a school committee. And, so we will see. But I will wait. For example, Councillor Rourke had made the motion to change about the school committee. All of that takes into consideration. So it's still in the process of talking and negotiating. So I will wait, John.
George, what district do you live in? This is the Low Connector coming in, George. Low Connector coming in. And so this is District 4. And George Prokop thinks he lives in District 4. So, Dominic, what district do you think you live in? You're 6?
I think I live in 6. It could change to 7, but it's somewhere between the 6 and 7.
Okay, Fru. Now, Fru, are you going to run for something?
I'm seriously thinking.
Okay, what district do you live in?
I'm on. I am right undecided because I don't know where I belong. I am on Middlesex Street, and the line has not really. I'm right on the border, so I don't know whether I'm in the Acres or in the Lower Highlands.
So you're in 7 right now, you think?
7.
7. Okay.
7, yeah.
So as long as we're talking schools, has anybody got any thought on Dan Rourke, city councilor's motion to reconfigure the school committee so there's no at-large, there's just one for each of the 8 districts?
I like it the way it is. I think the people can vote in the people they think. I think it gives the, we're not always going to be lucky enough to have Eileen Donahue as our city manager. And someday she's going to walk away, and now the talk in town is, and by the way, Eileen said she's not going to walk away. She's not even going to think about retiring until 2022. If you let the school committee be run by the city manager, it's all political appointments. So if I want to be in the school committee, I want to be in the school committee. And the city manager will pick the best candidate he thinks is good for the job. I just think that elected by the public is, I think we're doing pretty good. But that's only one answer. Back over to you guys.
So Dominic, what do you think? No at large, and have 8 districts, or do you like 4 districts and 2 at large?
Yeah, Cliff. I have never been a supporter of the lawsuit. I thought the lawsuit was bad, and I thought the proposal by Councillor Rourke for not having citywide is also not good, and I think it's wrong for not including school committee in the talk. When they talk about redistricting and all that, it's wrong for not inviting school committee to participate. I believe that the lawsuit was brought upon by the minority group of minority residents who claimed that the lawsuit would help minority candidates getting elected. And I have been saying no, it's not so since the beginning, and I still feel that it is not going to be so. If you are a minority candidate right now, I could feel that you do feel that it's tougher than it currently is. So I feel that this lawsuit is actually hurt the minority candidates a lot more than helping. So this lawsuit has an adverse effect, and ironically, a lot of minority who happen to be my supporters and my friends, they're all cheering up. They all cheer up, saying, hey, this lawsuit's gonna do good for the city and do good for themselves. And I feel it's do the opposite. And like John said, it's cutting off all your supporters from the city, and you are concentrated on this small district. And also we use the census data and not the number of voters. You may have a 50% of minority living in District 6 or District 7. However, there are so small number of those people live there that actually go to vote. And I think that is wrong. And now the proposal has been what? The settlement has been 9 city council plus 3 at large. That means 11 city councils. And if Danny Rook was thinking about adding 2 more school committee to the mix, that means you have 11 city councils plus 8 school committee. If we were to change that without the lawsuit, without redistricting, and I think it would have increased the chance of minority candidates getting elected automatically, I think.
And to me, this person running for school committee is the most important position because it grabs the youth of the country, of the city. And, to me, it's more valuable to have good sitting school committee people than not. And the other thing is, I think that the school committee should run at large and leave it the way it is, the numbers the way it is, because each one of them will have to have an interest in every school, not just in their district. So I have to go both ways. Stay with the numbers. I think by doing that, it touches all the schools and the needs of all the schools. And to me, it's more crucial than a city councilor, because I've worked with city councilors and I've worked with school committee people, and let me tell you, the toughest job in that whole place is the school committee.
I agree, George. Thank you. I think school committee jobs is way too important to ignore, and I think the role of the school committee touches pretty much everybody in the city.
I want to back up the bus for 1 second, okay? With Danny Rourke's motion. If Danny Rourke gets his way, will the people on the zoning board want a $12,000 salary? Will the people on the election board want a $12,000 salary? So if we appoint the school committee, are we going to take away their salary, or are we going to leave it at 12 grand?
I liked your point, especially Dominic, about the fact the school committee was one of the ones sued, one of the ones impacted, but one of the ones excluded from participation. I realized that bringing the school committee in would be hard and complicated and messy, but I think there should have been some reaching out to the school committee. Just my opinion. Fru, you look like you were about to say something.
Yes, I think I may be the only one with this idea. In America, we advocate a representative government, right? If we go by that, then we say that in this country they should vote senators at large. How would that be? And then going by that premise, I think I would beg to strongly disagree with Dominic that the lawsuit, in my own opinion, and I am entitled to that opinion, was to actually open the doors and allow representative participative government in the city. That doesn't mean that it's excluding the minorities. You know, you mentioned that it is the lawsuit was to for minority. The lawsuit was about Lowell. If you look, the voting system in Lowell is, I think Lowell is the only one that is still practicing that kind of voting system. Look in Cambridge and all these other cities in the state. Are you trying to tell me that they are doing the wrong thing? And then Lowell, the only city, is the one doing the right thing? And if you talk about school committee, I think Councillor Rourke's motion, to me, it is very, very diversified. It makes, because Lowell, we pride ourselves that we are a city of diversity and of immigrants, and that is which is true. When once you spread it out, there are many immigrants, the Asians, the Cambodians, the Africans, and the Latinos. They come with ideas. When once you broaden it, you give opportunities for this broader net, for these people who come with various novel ideas that will actually bring into the discussion to open people's minds, and not only being limited by people who are here in Lowell. That's the beauty of Lowell. People who are here, they learn from people who bring ideas from outside. So when once we are trying to open it so that people also can open their minds and not be limited just by what they know within, and then some people resent that and think that it's trying to dilute the vote also.
Fru, you remind me of the Japanese proverb. It's the nail that is standing highest that is the one that gets hammered. So,
yes, that's true. Because you have to hammer it to go down and meet the others.
So, Fru, I'm not arguing with you from your point of view. We just have a different view of the glass of the water in the glass. But do you support neighborhood schools? Do you support neighborhood schools?
That's a good question, but could you please explain to my understanding? I don't. When I understand neighborhood, I mean that it's like if you are in the acre, if there's a neighborhood, if a neighborhood would mean that only the kids in that acre should go to that school.
Exactly. That's exactly. Do you support that idea?
No, that is not the ideology. A neighborhood school should not be, in my own opinion, it's not the way to go, because when once the kids are moving across the city, they are also exchanging ideas and sharing what happens at one part of the city.
Bro, are you kidding me? Bro, are you kidding me? Okay? The kids, when they get on the bus, okay, are not communicating with one another. Okay, have you ever ridden on a Lowell school bus with the kids?
John, they are not communicating in the bus, but once they are sitting in the class, they are not coming from one neighborhood. They are coming from Lowell. They are Lowell kids, not neighborhood kids. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, I'll put this into your ear, okay? When you live all over the city like they do, the only time they can be friendly is if they decide to have a little Zoom meeting, because one lives in Pawtucketville, the other kid lives in the Acre, another kid lives in Belvedere, we got another kid in Centerville, we got a kid up in the Highlands. They don't play with one another, they don't walk to school with one another. I got more camaraderie out of the children that I walked to Lowell High School. I walked to Lowell High School from my house, not a big deal, okay? It's 10 minutes. I walked to St. Peter's School, 5 minutes. I got more camaraderie with my schoolmates walking home and walking to school than I got in school. I just want to put that into your ear. I like neighborhood schools. I think they're a good idea. The City of Lowell school system has a central management system where the superintendent of schools wants all the schools to score wonderfully, and I think Lowell set up pretty good.
So I just wanted to add one thing to Dominic's point. The one part I agree specifically is that I think the focus has not been where it should be, which is getting people to vote, which is one of the points you mentioned, because I think that should be the focus. When I said, for instance, that I wasn't going to run for city council, where I felt like being an activist, that is where I feel that I can help in a sense of working in getting the people to be civically engaged so that they can vote. The problem has been the fact that the city of Lowell, may be diverse, and not every particular ethnic group is concentrated in one area. They live in multiple areas. And I feel that if you get people involved in the process, that is how you're going to get people to vote, as opposed to, trying to categorize the districts and say, well, this is what we should break it up to so that we can get more minorities. Because the fact that this has changed or changing into a district still does not mean that those people who never voted is going to vote.
Yes, exactly.
So it may not change, but it might divide. It's divided the city in a sense of who can vote where. Yes. Right? Right. But it's still not solving the problem of getting people to vote.
That's right. And when you say divided, it reminds me of another thing too, that we are pretty much building a wall, a virtual wall around our city. Say if I run from District 6, and I got elected from District 6, hopefully, but anyway, if that's the case, when I go to City Hall and I see a problem, say from District 2, and I want to bring it out, do you think people take my opinion seriously?
And they want you to stay in your lane.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
pretty much, there you are. There's your neighborhood. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. And also, if you are a popular guy from District 6, you got elected there, you're pretty much set for life.
But I would beg to disagree. Anyone who's running for office in Lowell, I believe you are running for Lowell. You are not running to improve your district. You are running to bring the discussion so that the discussion represents the various parts of Lowell. I beg to disagree that someone will only advocate development in his own local area. If you go by that premise, so up till now we pride ourselves that Lowell is a melting pot. Look at the government of Lowell, the picture of the people that govern Lowell. Does that infuse any new ideas, any new ethos? Don't you think that also these other immigrants are bringing up riches that can be the strength of Lowell? When you go downtown Lowell now, downtown Lowell is as vibrant, it represents the world. You can get businesses from all over the world. And then in that aspect, it makes Lowell a stronger city, vibrant economically, socially, and culturally, educationally as well, as compared to a city like Billerica, Chelmsford, and all that. We have this talent. We should be able to harness it, give it an opportunity to flourish and make Lowell what it is. So by redistricting Lowell, it doesn't mean that someone will only be taking care of his own district. And if you are running for position in Lowell, you think that you will limit yourself only within your neighborhood. I think that you don't belong in Lowell. You belong in that neighborhood.
I don't disagree with you, Fru. I don't disagree, but I don't think it's going to work that way. But anyway.
I get 2
Only
points.
if we encourage, George made a good point, is to sensitize and educate the people. Everything is about education. That's what we have this media to change the mentality and look forward to we are in the 21st century. We are not in the 20th century. And we should actually work to harness what the knowledge and the new ideas that are coming in to make Lowell move forward, not make Lowell move backward.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. I got 2 little issues I want to bring up based on what Dominic just said. Now, you live in District 7. Now, let's say, for instance, you decide you're going to go shopping at Target and you see something you don't like as you drive through District 6, or maybe you're over in District 5, okay, so wherever you might be, you see something you don't like. You're in 7. So you say, you know what, there are too many homeless people sleeping on the benches in District 6. I drove through District 6 the other day. How do you think that District 6 person is going to feel towards you because you're pointing out their district? I would assume District 6 counselor is going to say, oh, really, up in the District 7, and people don't pick up their dog droppings. So we can only complain within our own district? I wonder how we're going to walk our way into this thing. And I'll ask Fru, what does he think?
Very good, John. Just like in the Congress, if I see anything, if I drive around South Lowell or the Belvederes or anywhere, I see something that is good there, I will talk behind to the city councilor in that place and commend him for what he's doing there, and actually tell him behind the scene to bring that to the council floor so that it can be adopted. As well as if I drive in Pawtucketville, I see an area, something that is wrong, I am a Lowellian. I will approach that city councilor there and say, sir, this is the complaint that I've seen and I've observed. We talk and then see how we can bring that to the council for discussion. It is about Lowell and not about my neighborhood. And it is about if you decide to isolate yourself only to make your own district competitive or make the other one bad, that is not the spirit in Lowell.
Respectfully, Fru, I'm a lifelong Lowellian, and it just does not work that way.
I like the idea of at large because it meant that Dan Rourke and Rodney Elliott and Rita Mercer were all my city councilors. George, you got any thoughts on this you'd like to add?
Well, just a little bit towards Fru's point. If you happen to be, let's say, in California or in Morocco or someplace, and someone says, where are you from? What are you going to say? Are you going to say I'm from Belvedere? You're going to say I'm from District 4? Or are you going to say I'm from the city of Lowell? And that's how I look at things, is that, it is our city. We have our issues like every other city, but, I'm from the city of Lowell. And that's how I would like to pay tribute to it, from that aspect, is if you run for something, you're running for your city, not your district.